Survive the night at Wolf Lake if the suspense doesn't kill you first. Hello, huge movie fanatic Nate, stopping on by. Once again, coming at you for one of my famed movie/Blu-ray reviews. Today I'm coming at you to review the movie and Blu-ray of Wolf Lake, a motion picture that I think was filmed in '78, which didn't actually get released, I don't think, until 1980, that amazing year of so many other films like Friday the 13th, Terror Train. 1980 was a hell of a year for movies that I really love. This kind of, newly to my collection, being newly added as one of them. My history with this movie goes all the way back to, I don't know, somewhere around 2008, 2009 when I was working at a mom and pop video store, and I bought this VHS, which I've already showcased on the channel, the original Prism big box clamshell VHS. It's crazy that I bought this probably from that video store in 2008 or 2009, and I just had it sitting around for all that time, and I never even watched it until just recently. Just looked at the cover and I'm like, I don't think I ever watched that, and watched it recently and absolutely loved it, and was just absolutely thrilled when I looked it up on Blu-ray.com and found out that Kino Lorber had put out a Blu-ray of it years ago. Instantly ordered that up, recently got the Blu-ray, and just had a chance to watch the Blu-ray, and obviously second time seeing the movie and first time seeing the Blu-ray, so I'll talk about the movie and then I'll talk about the Blu-ray. So the premise of this movie, it's supposed to take place in Canada, basically this beautiful lake location with these awesome frickin' rustic like log cabins that are located on this area, and very much with just like movies, that so many movies, they were making a lot of these back in the late 70s, the 70s in general, maybe mid to late 70s, this era of deliverance and rituals and just the, lost in the woods or nature kind of, man against man, taking place in nature kind of movies. And I gotta tell you, being a huge outdoors guy, loving nature, loving the outdoors, I always go in for these movies, and it's just a shame that I didn't discover this movie sooner than I did, but I'm just glad that I discovered it now. It's just a testament to what I've always said in the past several years on this channel about, not loving movies that come out these days so much, new movies, but there being a, almost limitless plethora of movies from the good old days to, that I haven't seen or to discover, and this is a perfect example of that. I didn't discover Wolf Lake until I'm in my mid-frickin' 40s. So the premise of this movie obviously is very simple. Rod Steiger's the main star. He goes up to this cabin location with, I think, 3 other buddies, one of which is the guy from, was it Paul Mantee, the guy who was in Day of the Animals? I think that's the only other movie I can really remember him from. He was the guy, the ex-injured football guy who was terminal in Day of the Animals. It was kind of fun to see him back in another role. And Day of the Animals is kind of one of those movies as well, like Grizzly, Day of the Animals, the outdoor 70s nature / some kind of threat, whether it's another man or, in those cases, for the movie Grizzly and Day of the Animals, those two movies, the threat obviously is nature itself and the animals located within. This one is more of a, back to like deliverance and rituals, kind of man against man situation. Very simple premise. These guys just go up to a cabin that, they've been up there before, and I guess they know the owner of this particular place. I guess it's like 3 cabins on this beautiful lake, just like surrounded by just pine trees. Absolutely beautiful location, which turns out is actually not actually filmed in Canada, but filmed in Mexico, which is surprising. That generally when you think of Mexico, you don't think of this kind of scenery, so that was very surprising to find out that it was in fact filmed in Mexico. I'm really hoping they didn't build all these cabins, supplement, materials, the extra features, the interview. I think the producer talks about this movie, and I'm not exactly clear whether they built the cabins for this movie or not. I can't imagine, the cabins are just so awesome. I can't imagine they would have had them built for this relatively low budget movie. I hope they didn't, but at any rate, the cabins are really great, really just, freaking rustic. I mean, the cabins that are featured in this movie is just kind of like, I can just, like, one of those cabins would just be my ultimate, just, year-round, 365-day house just on a lake, and surrounded by pine trees and wilderness would be my ultimate place to live, where maybe once a week, or the groceries would be airplaned in, seaplaned in, like the guys have to be flown in a seaplane, just like with Rituals, the main 4 guys headed up by Rod Steiger come to this cabin location, I think very much with like Rituals for their annual getaway or whatever, but they're airplaned in by seaplane, and that plane pilot takes off and leaves them behind, and they find out that Rod Steiger, kind of heading up the situation, finds out that the normal guy, maybe the owner of the location and stuff, isn't there. The normal people that basically caretake the place isn't there, and this guy he hadn't seen before, and this kind of this younger guy with the beard, and this kind of quote-unquote sexy blonde chick who doesn't wear a bra is his girlfriend or whatever. And instantly there's this magnificent tension between Rod Steiger and this guy, this younger guy, caretaking the place, and kind of an instant clash of generations, if you will, where Rod Steiger's like, "Who's the girl?" And it's just like, "Oh, that's so and so," and "Where does she sleep?" In the cabin with me. And the Steiger's like, "Are you married?" And he's like, "No." And it's just this kind of Steiger obviously being from the gotta be married to sleep in the same bed or same room or same house or whatever generation, and obviously this younger kid being more hip to the reality of the world. And what I would agree with is yeah, that whole marriage stuff is just a bunch of baloney, but that's a whole nother topic. But it's amazing how like, this is one of those classic. This is why I love older movies and just can't stand newer ones, because in my opinion, not to say that there's no new that there's no good new movies at all. That's not the case. It's very few and far between. But just the wonderful subtle tension that is instantly basically laid down in front of the viewer in this movie. It's very super subtle, and just like the uncomfortableness between the Rod Steiger character and the younger caretaker guy. I think the character's name might be David, and the actual actor's first name is David too, which is kind of funny. But the unease between them is just like instantly just becomes known, or just for me watching the movie is just instantly there, like very subtle unease or whatever. And what ends up being revealed later is this younger guy, I think his name, both actor and character name, I think is David in this movie. Turns out he's a Vietnam deserter, meaning he was in the war, got shipped out there to the war, and saw some things that were understandably not pleasant, or possibly took place in unpleasant things, and actually ended up deserting. And once Rod Steiger finds this out, his son having died, probably been, maybe they were both potentially drafted and sent to Vietnam, and Rod Steiger's son died in Vietnam. So once Rod Steiger finds out that this David character is a deserter from Vietnam, that kind of sets him off, and basically the Rod Steiger character becomes the bad guy in this movie. And they already brought, they're there for a hunting trip basically. They brought a bunch of booze and rifles to this cabin location, so obviously they're well versed in shooting and rifles and shotgun use and stuff like that, which is doesn't help the David character once Rod Steiger character finds out about his desertion. This is a good example of maybe it's just best to, personally, it's kind of weird that, and possibly one of the more unrealistic things about this movie is, well, why the hell did the guy even admit or even say that he's a deserter? It just kind of makes no sense. Why, if you're out there and it's supposed to take place in like, this wooded cabin lake location somewhere in Canada, and you're hiding out, you're a deserter and you're hiding out, I mean, you're really not going to want to just, basically blurt it out to anyone who shows up that you're a deserter. You're going to want to keep that to yourself. So that might be one of the more unrealistic things about this movie. He ends up confiding in this nicer guy of the 4 guys that show up for a hunting, getaway hunting trip or whatever, kind of confiding in this guy, maybe not expecting him to tell the Rod Steiger character. But I mean, to be fair, the David character doesn't know that Rod Steiger, had a son that died in Vietnam, so I guess he didn't expect the kind of response that would end up happening later on in the movie. But still, if you're you know, I mean, back in that day, you know, that was probably frowned upon. I mean, I know that the country was divided, just like it so often is, down the middle regarding, you know, the whole Vietnam War and stuff. And honestly, you know, I obviously have an opinion, but just in hope, you know, just to save time and also the channel, I'm not going to bother expressing my opinion about, you know, either sides of the issue. But what ends up happening, obviously, is once Rod Steiger finds out that this guy's a deserter from Vietnam, it kind of sets him off on a. It's funny because it's not a crazy spree, because he kind of remains pretty, you know, interestingly calm throughout the whole movie. As he goes about his whatever, things just escalate. Oh, I know what happened. See, they, you know, obviously the four guys that show up kind of are all like, you know, just like woo woo to the blonde chick who doesn't wear a bra and stuff, and all kind of just oogling her. And Rod Steiger, after dinner and she's doing dishes, goes in there to just, you know, say whatever, and she's all kind of, you know, pissy and just like, you just, oh, why? Rod Steiger's like, I just want to get to know you, and she's why? She's like, why? Because I have tits. And it's just like, you want to see them? And you do get to see her tits in this movie, but obviously, like so many other movies, it's not a, you know, a sexy scene, so it almost doesn't count in a way. I mean, I guess it does, but not really, because it's this scene where she just, you know, in kind of spite, just pulls up the shirt and just shows Rod Steiger. It's funny, out of like hate, you know, like, you know, I despise that you want to see him, so here you go. It's just another potentially unrealistic, you know, bit, but it serves the purpose of the movie or whatever. But there, you know, then she slaps Rod Steiger and he hits her back, and that kind of begins the, you know, the tension builds, and you know, the David character's none too happy about that. I can't remember. I don't think David really does anything about it at that time. She kind of doesn't let him, but then later on, when the guys get, you know, Rod Steiger's just letting this fact that this guy's a deserter just kind of well up into him, until finally all four guys, you know, the other three guys are kind of like realize that Steiger's all whatchamacallit, just worked up over that guy, and he's like, well, let's get drunk, you know, plastered drunk, and forget about it, which is kind of another bad decision from the characters in this movie, because that ends up making them all four of them kind of reckless, you know, the Rod Steiger group and the other three guys reckless. And I can't remember who it is, but, you know, I think it's Rod Steiger who decides to go into the cabin and just have their way with, you know, David's girlfriend. And so obviously it's off camera, luckily. I won't say the word just for whatever, but, you know, they go in there and off camera have their way with David's girlfriend. I can't remember what David's doing during this. They come in and knock David out over the head with a beer bottle or something. So he's unconscious while this is happening. And, you know, I think the next morning David wakes up and like shoots a gun, you know, rifle into their, you know, the four guys' cabin, and ends up killing that nicer guy who he confided in, you know, by mistake. He just shot into the cabin, and it kills that nicer guy by mistake whom he confided in earlier, and that sets off basically the rest of the movie, where now the remaining three guys headed up by Rod Steiger are going to try to, I guess, probably kill David and the blonde girlfriend. And I won't ruin it. You know, I'll just say that the ending is, you know, it does end up sadder than one would expect, and kind of a sad ending or whatever. Incidentally, and, you know, at the time of this review, and I imagine when I'm shooting it, and maybe after I upload it as well, you can actually see the what I think is more or less the Kino Lorber Blu-ray scan on YouTube in its entirety for free, if you want to check that out. Possibly I'll put a link to it in the description of this video, and hopefully it remains up for a while. But you can actually, for anyone who hasn't seen the movie and wants to, you can actually see probably the Blu-ray scan on YouTube, which is really fun, you know, for anyone who hasn't seen it and wants to see it for free. It's so great when you can find movies on YouTube just for free and watch them that way. But I won't really comment on what happens for the rest of the movie. It's kind of cat and mouse. They do this thing where they try to escape, and they can't, you know, David and the girlfriend try to escape and they can't, and it's kind of just cat and mouse, and, you know, just see who can get, you know, who can off who first, basically. And it ends in a certain way, and And that's that. So I don't want to spoil everything. You can watch it hopefully on YouTube if you're so inclined to do so. I'd give this movie 3 stars out of 4 stars. What's interesting about this movie, and after I saw it, I was kind of thinking about this, and then watching the Blu-ray for the, seeing the movie for the second time, Blu-ray for the first time, I was like, you know what? I mean, it's funny because, this is what I love about old movies. It's like, not a, if you showed this to a high school kid or even a college kid or someone young these days, they'd be so fucking bored. Like, in a lot of ways, it's like having seen it again for a second time. It's like, if you really think about it, not a whole hell of a lot happens in this movie. But maybe that would be, necessarily on screen. But it's just like, when I saw it the second time, I'm like, you know what? It's like, for me, it never gets boring. It's right around 90 minutes long. It never gets boring, and I suppose it's because I just love the environment it takes place in. This beautiful lake that's secluded out in the middle of nowhere, and these really, really rustic, like 3 log cabins. And it's just like, if there was an ultimate location that I just want to spend the rest of my days, like, that's it. And it's just like, if you want to know where Nate, would regard as just the best place to live, watch this movie, and it's just like, that's where Nate just wants to live. If he had any choice just to live anywhere or whatever, just like a cabin like this on a lake like this in an environment like this. So I guess for me, the reason the movie never gets boring is just because I just love, especially on Blu-ray, just the location it takes place in, was filmed in. It's like, you don't even need anything to happen. But beyond that, I do think this movie has that wonderful late 70s, early 80s charm of just being, when movies were still just kind of like, there's no visual effects. I mean, it's just no big, special effects or anything like that. It's just like a simple story that just unfolds at this realistic kind of realistic kind of pace. It's not some kind of thing like a music video where it's just all chopped up and, just all looks, it's just like, it's just one of those old, this is why I love movies from this era. It just unfolds at its, leisurely, just organic pace, and that's what I absolutely love about this movie. And just as I said, it's funny how not a whole hell of a lot happens in this movie, but for me, it's just a fun movie to watch because of the locations and stuff. And what's interesting is, I guess there's at least 2 cuts of this movie, and the VHS, the first time I saw it, the VHS contains one of the cuts, and the Blu-ray contains what might be regarded as probably the director's cut, I would imagine, or the preferred version. The VHS contains this version where it starts with this, I guess, this scene that isn't in the Blu-ray version, where it's this, I can't, without spoiling, it will just say it's a sad scene where it's like an aftermath of what happens in the movie, kind of a next morning thing. Without spoiling the movie, I don't want to really ruin it, but it just shows the aftermath the next morning, briefly, as a kind of, how some movies start at, with the end. They show the, like John Wick, it kind of shows the end just to get you interested, and then goes back to the beginning of the story. The Prism VHS cut does that, where it like just kind of shows starts the movie with the aftermath, and then begins the movie from the beginning. What it also does is when certain characters meet, like they cut very briefly to like a second shot of some of the violence that's going to happen between those 2 characters later, which is kind of fun. I mean, it's kind of an interesting alternate cut. In a perfect world, the Blu-ray would have contained both cuts, which would have been the ultimate Blu-ray release of the movie. Because while I consider the version that's on the Blu-ray to be the better of the 2 cuts, it would be interesting just for just a completist point of view, just to have the other one as well. And if some people out there hadn't seen that version, it's kind of fun where certain characters meet, and like if the blonde meets one of the 4 guys or whatever, they'll show like a second of that scene where they're assaulting her, or someone else meets another character, and they'll show a second of this violence that's going to happen later on in the movie. So it's an interesting way. I think it's probably some distributor did it. But yeah, I don't know. But you would have thought, to get a hold of that extra footage at the end, I don't know. Who the hell knows who did it? But it was kind of a way to, maybe whoever did that version kind of realized that, even back in the late 70s, early 80s, maybe the this movie was kind of quote unquote slow. I don't have a problem with the pace of it, but a lot of people might. And they just cut some of that stuff in there, just kind of be like, okay, here's a tease of the violence that's going to happen later on between these characters that we show as they meet for the first time. It's kind of an interesting thing or whatever, but just know that there's like at least 2 different cuts of this movie, which is kind of interesting. So I'd highly recommend this movie to people who like movies like, another one I forgot that kind of came out in the same era was that Prophecy, the monster movie from 1979, and Rituals and Deliverance, and so many of these movies that take place where it's either man versus man or animal versus man, these from the 70s, basically kind of mid to late 70s, a lot of Day of the Animals, Grizzly, all this nature gone amok or man gone amok in nature. I'd highly recommend this movie to anyone who's interested in that kind of genre. Like I say, when I saw the tape and I watched it for the first time recently, I'm like, oh my god, I've had this for over 10 years and it's like right up my alley. Why haven't I watched it yet? But at any rate, I'm glad I discovered it when I did, and I'm also glad I got this Blu-ray, which is absolutely amazing, by Kino Lorber, released in 2016 on Blu-ray. Kino Lorber, using the, if you watch my showcasing of the VHS video I made using the original theatrical poster, which I absolutely love. Hats off to Kino for just using that amazing artwork and not doing some, newly commissioned bullcrap kind of artwork. Highly recommended movie and highly recommended Blu-ray. Little bit of a review of the Blu-ray. There's a little bit of wobble, and I don't, just like with artifacts and stuff on transfers where there's wobble at the beginning of the movie, in the opening credits there's a little bit of wobble, but just like with me kind of actually liking and preferring artifacts and even sound issues with these old, now considered retro movies, I kind of consider the wobble to be a little bit of a just a charm as well, kind of a thing that's not supposed to be there, but it's just kind of a, just another element that makes it just kind of, I don't know, I just, I like artifacts and a little bit of sound damage as well on your image, and in the wobble. It's just like, I don't want it wobbling the whole movie, and luckily I don't think it does, but just beware or whatever. You might be able to see it on YouTube that, there's a little bit of wobble at the opening credits and stuff like that. And one thing that I do kind of feel like, it's kind of maybe a little bummer, but you could probably correct this just by turning up your saturation of your color on your TV, but the Blu-ray seems to be possibly, the film print that they got or whatever they got to make the Blu-ray seems to be possibly a little desaturated, like all the way through the movie. It's not a big, huge deal, but one thing I was really delighted about when I saw this on Blu-ray for the first time is the sharpness is absolutely just breathtaking and amazing. Like the sharpness, I've said this so many times with movies like this that take place in the wilderness. Yeah, like movies that take place in the wilderness, they're really you really have to experience them in the highest resolution possible. And I guess in this case for this movie, the standard Blu-ray release, I think, is the highest possible resolution at this time you can experience this movie in. And oh my gosh, it really, movies that take place in the outdoors and these kind of woodsy environments really beg to be seen in the best quality, highest definition possible. And in the sharpness, I throughout the course of the movie when I was watching the Blu-ray, I was just constantly just like, from scene to scene to scene, and it doesn't even have to take place outdoors, like close-ups and stuff. Like, oh my god, that is so sharp and crisp. And another thing about this movie, I really want to give props to the focus puller, whoever was, in charge of the focus on this movie. It's like really top-notch focus puller on this movie, because I don't think there was a single shot that's out of focus. It's just like, wow. I was just like, I don't know, it's just, kudos to the focus guy in this movie, because it just like, I was just so, as the movie wore on, I was just like, wow, because there's a lot of, it's a dramatic movie with dramatic, character this and that, and there's a lot of close-ups, and, when you do a close-up, especially a zoomed kind of a lens or a longer lens, it obviously is, your depth of field is smaller and it's easier to be out of focus. It's just like, kudos to whoever was pulling focus on this movie, because everything looks so great. And I forgot to mention, back to the movie review for a little bit, there's a couple instances in where, that are really kind of fun, where Rod Steiger, and I guess if you listened to, if you watched the little interview with the producer, Rod Steiger was, I guess, had formerly, before he did this movie, had been an Academy Award winner, and I guess he was kind of hoping on, getting another Academy Award for this movie. But there's a couple scenes, where he obviously he's all passionate about his point of view, regarding, this guy being a deserter and his son having died in Vietnam and stuff. So there's a couple scenes that are really great where Rod Steiger, is yelling, whether it's to his buddies or, there's this, I think there's two scenes, one of them where he's yelling to his buddies and the other one where he's kind of having an argument with the David character. And that scene is really great because it feels so realistic, like it's not a scripted movie, like it's an actual kind of heated conversation, because David, it's mostly kind of Rod Steiger yelling at David, but David also responds with some really good points, and that scene is probably one of the better, probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie, where it's just like, it's just like, the whole movie is basically exists for these two characters, being at each other's throats. So that scene was that was really kind of a great scene. But I didn't want to forget to mention that, Rod Steiger does a couple of, he's really great in this movie, and, he does a couple of, passionate, heated, kind of like what he does in, Amityville Horror. I know the difference between a supernatural occurrence and a bad clam. Like when he's, yelling. He's really good in his yelling scenes, and that's another thing I love about, one of my favorite parts of Amityville Horror is that scene where the Steiger character in Amityville Horror was being really emotional in front of his, religious superiors in that movie. But anyway, I didn't want to forget to mention those couple of, acting, whatever scenes with Rod Steiger, kind of being, his character being like emotionally charged and whatever. But yeah, so just keep that in mind with this Blu-ray release. Like the sharpness is really amazing, but as I said, I mean, the possible desaturation quality of the movie can simply be corrected by simply turning up saturation on color. I should have tried that, but I'll undoubtedly be watching this again soon, so I can maybe try that on that viewing. The sound is fine. I mean, it's obviously mono, 1980, nothing to write home about. But I think there was, maybe with real changes and stuff, I think there was some, like some of that crumpling sound quality with the film and stuff, and I love that. I eat that stuff up. Just like with artifacts on the image, I kind of like some of that, artifacts on the sound. It's most likely only in like real changes and stuff like that. But an absolutely fantastic Blu-ray presentation, possibly a little desaturated, but once again, you can probably fix that with your own TV settings or whatever. Looking at the special features, we've got interview with actors Jerry Hardin and Richard Hurd. Amazingly, that it's those two of the older guys from the four-group posse. Amazingly, they're still around back when they did this Blu-ray in 2016 at the time, and they talk about that. That little interview. For my money, I could have watched them, talk for an hour. I mean, they're a couple of old guys from the heyday of movies and TV and stuff like that. Kind of interesting. Their recounts of the movie, and actually something to do with the movie, or something to do with either the movie or before the movie. I don't know. Some party one of these guys went to, ended up meeting his wife, and I don't know. It's not maybe necessarily so much. They're maybe not talking so much about the movie, maybe is some other things. But I think they talk about the movie a little bit there. We've got another interview here. We've got interview with producer Lance Hool. I like that interview as well. The guy seems like a down-to-earth kind of a guy, and he shares some interesting, tidbits about this movie and him trying to get it made and him getting it made and then not being able to get it distributed because of its kind of, controversial subject matter. And it's like almost kind of a testament to the movie's, how well the movie does what it does. It's showing two completely opposite points of view on this polarizing, it was more polarizing obviously at the time, subject regarding the Vietnam War and stuff like that. So like no one wanted to distribute it, which was kind of a bummer. And that's when he was talking about Rod Steiger being disappointed about, once it actually did get released, having a really, really just sorry ass, most likely limited release that was pretty much came and went and no one heard about it, and him mentioning Rod Steiger being disappointed because he was hoping for another Academy Award, as if those matter for shit. Then on the back here you've also got trailer gallery. I can't remember if that includes a trailer for this movie or not. Usually Kino Lorber will put trailers of other movies that kind of, maybe they feel like maybe the person who would be interested enough to buy this title might be interested, you know, that the trailers would be kind of along the lines of this. So it's a couple of like canon, you know, it's a bunch of canon action films with gunplay and stuff. So I don't think there's a trailer for this movie. I'm not 100% sure, but there's trailers for other Kino Lorber Blu-ray releases of the, you know, action variety. That actually reminds me to mention one more thing, if I may, about the movie itself. The scenes where they actually, you know, they're shooting at each other, you know, maybe they're each in their respective cabins shooting at each other. It's actually, you know, some of the scenes where they're actually shooting at each other, whether David is shooting at them or they're shooting at David. I gotta tell you, it's just like, wow, it kind of, you know, if you're familiar with Sam Peckinpah movies, like some of the shootouts are nothing to, you know, write home about. You know, they don't last very long, which is kind of also realistic. But like the cutting, like once the shooting happens and stuff, it kind of, the cutting is really kind of cool. And it, you know, for being a slow-paced movie, you know, when the shooting happens, it is kind of like cut really quick and really cut, you know, shot and cut relatively well, and very you know, done really well, the shootouts, in my opinion. Kind of high energy of the good old days, you know. Obviously no digital muzzle flashes back in these days. All the gun blasts you see coming out of the rifle barrels are real and not added later, which is another thing you can love about this movie. Just like with so many Kino Lorber Blu-ray releases, looking at the disc itself, it's nothing really to write home about. Just their KL Studio Classics logo, just KL in the background. Just a kind of a plain, you know, their standard disc look with the Wolf Lake just very plainly printed on there. It would be cool, you know, to just have like the poster art printed on there. I'd just as soon have that versus this, but it's their outfit. I'm just glad that they've given us this movie on Blu-ray, very glad, so they can have their boring disc art. And then it's interesting, behind the disc and on the other side there, it's not reversible cover art, but it's kind of cool what they do give you here. It's like alternate posters. It looks like one of these is possibly here a Mexican poster, maybe Spanish poster, you know, a different poster from a different country, which is kind of cool. I can't read this, but Cantisera Humania yeah, so you can see that, you know, probably Spanish or Mexican poster there. This other one, you know, it looks like a different title as well, possibly a different poster for the movie, not a poster that I'm like very much for reasons that I won't get into. We've got the Honor Guard. To see justice done, all things cannot be forgiven. So it's like a completely different title, completely different poster. Definitely glad this ain't on the front cover, I'll tell you that. So I guess that pretty much does it for this movie Blu-ray review. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks a lot for watching, and as always, we'll catch you on the next one.